Welcome to the LivBtr podcast. I'm Erica Spiegelman, addiction and wellness specialist and author, and along with me, I have my co-host, Jay Siano, a New York-based serial entrepreneur, business scaling expert, and wellness aficionado. We are here to inspire, encourage growth, and most importantly, to live better. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LivBtr podcast. I'm your host, Erica Spiegelman, and my co-host with the most, Jay Siano, is here with us.
Hello.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, Erica. Exciting times here. We're finally doing it. We're on the podcast. Let's impact some lives.
Yes. So let's tell everybody a little bit about ourselves and why the LivBtr podcast was born. Do you want to start?
I would love that. Yeah, for sure. So we went to college together at the University of Arizona. I had the most perfect life up until college. Very, very normal, American family upbringing. And unfortunately in college, my mother was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and ended up passing away shortly after school. And that tragedy for me really, put me in a position to unfortunately go a little on a downward spiral. Definitely, drink too much and party too much to distract myself. And I think over the last 20 plus years at this point, I've been really focused on bettering myself and everything around me. So, and that's what brought us back together.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Can you tell everybody just quickly what you do for a living, just to give some background on your interests?
I can do that. To make a long story short, I started in commercial real estate 22 years ago. Shortly after that, and started to represent companies like Starbucks Coffee, discovered Chipotle while in LA and brought them to New York. Have had a long history of bringing brands, scaling concepts and rolling them out. So my companies do that on the corporate side as well as the franchise side. We also are launching a business brokerage. SABRE is the parent company. And we are very, very well versed in the fitness, wellness, healthy lifestyle space, which I am a very big fan of and getting more and more involved in every day. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Erica?
Yeah, I will. I was just going to say, but I love it how you married all these things together and the things that like inspire you. And that's really just so cool. I think it's going to help other people realize that you can do that. There's not one path that you have to take. You could create your own and kind of, mold it, shape it as you go, depending on what, resonates with you, which I think kind of like my own career. I'm an addiction counselor, specialist, and author of a series of books, of 6 published books, in a Rewired series.
Which is amazing. Sick.
6, yeah. My latest book was 101 Affirmations for Addiction and Recovery, and that was published a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey as an author and kind of getting to be able to share my own story as somebody who's been sober for 15 years and how I noticed, as the years went by, how just everyday people really lacked knowledge around self-care, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual self-care. So that's what my books and my speaking events and my workshops have kind of morphed into, is just trying to spread the word of living better and making people more aware of all these other things that we kind of have to address and recognize as important, like communication and boundaries and self-love and healthy relationships and solitude and time management and, physical self-care and creating routines, having discipline, creating practices, whatever resonates with you, whatever words, but something along those lines, because it really does rewire our brains. It helps us feel more confident, feel proud of ourselves. And that's really the freedom, I think, in terms of living better.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of synergies, with what you do professionally and what I do, from a lifestyle perspective.
Right.
And that's really what brought us together. We've been paying attention to what we've both been doing over the years and starting our own families and, being at very similar places in our lives. And, as as I get more involved in the personal development space, really for my own use, I've been fortunate to inspire a lot of other people to do things like my latest, be alcohol free for 2023. And, every day I have conversations with very interesting people around that topic. And, I think it's becoming a lot more popular to not drink. A key component of, I think where I am right now and the level that I'm operating at and the community of folks that I'm surrounded by. And, I think our purpose here is really to speak about our own experiences and hope that it benefits other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of courage to do what you're doing. And I think it's a lot of people want to do that too, or at least clean up their life a little bit, or try to live better, try to start a healthy habit. And we talked about this, that a lot of people do have challenges. And I think, we're going to we already have had some great guests, and we're going to be having, continuous, amazing human beings that also are an example of living better. But I think it's, what we see and what we hear in our personal lives and on this podcast is that everybody's kind of on their own journey. Everyone's at a different place in their wellness journey. Some are beginning, some are farther along, some are, like you have just stepped into this courageous place of like saying, I'm alcohol free for 2023, a full year. And that is like incredible. There's a lot of people that say, I want to cut back on drinking, but to say goodbye to it for a year, that sounds a little intense, So I think it's great that everybody listening knows that we are supporting you wherever you're at. And there is tools, there is help, there is strategies that we hope to provide, from our own experiences and with our guests, that we can hopefully help you feel encouraged, right? That's, I think, a big part. Yeah.
That's spot on. And I think you said it right. My experience and what's working well for me doesn't mean it's going to work well for somebody else, right? Like you have to really, try things. I think, I'm a big fan of experimenting with different things, whether it be mental toughness, physical challenges, sleep, right? Like just figuring out how to optimize recovery, which is very important. I'm very into training and working out and, doing all things healthy lifestyle driven. And, again, I think we're going to be able to share some things that are working well for us and or not working. And we started to do that before we hit record here with a little back pain that you're dealing with right now. I think that's a great example of conversation we can have that other people can benefit from. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we've always talked about like the how too, right? It's like how can we help people like, begin to, like for my journey, how did I get sober, right? People always ask, how did you get sober? How did you start even that journey?
Of course.
And so I'll come to the back issue in a minute, but it's funny. It's like I was so focused for so long on my physical self-care really helped me get sober, to be honest with you. It was like a routine around walking and then running. And then I was running, every day, even just for a couple miles, but it was really helpful in terms of routine, honoring my body, helped my mind, helped my sleep.
Discipline.
Yeah, discipline. Exactly. Discipline helped. Boundaries with myself helped. I was in bed by 10, non-negotiable. The non-negotiables are really also what saved my life.
Have those changed drastically over the years, the non-negotiables?
They haven't changed drastically, but I think the physical self-care has taken a little bit, not a backseat. I walk now, I don't run because of like issues when I was pregnant and I had back problems. And I think just not really ever training with weights or my core. I was just a runner. And now I'm kind of paying for that. So my goal this year is to really strengthen and use weights or Pilates and just, even my own weight just to build a little bit more strength. But it's a great question. They have changed slightly, like not completely, but I think I've learned that if I let go a little bit, my whole world won't fall apart. The beginning of my wellness journey, I was very scared to stop because I felt like if I stopped, then how can I start again? It was really a true like issue, I think at the time, although it kept me safe. So now I know if I don't exercise for a week, I'm okay. I'm not going to gain weight. I'm not going to feel like I'm sluggish or lazy. I'm not going to feel out of shape, which was my biggest thing was I'm going to lose my momentum. I'm cool with that.
Sure.
And once in a while, like now, I'll stay up later than I usually do, or I can eat things that maybe I was like, I have to eat really nutritious on, I have to, now I'm totally like, I can get back on it. That's the thing. I think I know that I'm safe within myself.
Sure.
Now. And that takes time. That takes time to know, like, wow, if something does fall back or out of balance, I can get back up and I know I could go back to it. And that I think is just through time and experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I unpacked a lot of what you said. And, I advise a lot of founders of fitness companies really in the, the bigger box or the boutique fitness space. Is where I spend the bulk of my time personally. It's what I really enjoy. And, I think we should come back to how to create your own life. You mentioned it earlier, how everything that I do seems to intertwine and, benefit. I've more or less created an ecosystem that works really well for me.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I'm doing hard things, I don't really feel like I'm working. I'm actually always enjoying what I'm doing. But I think that, the concept of working out has changed so much over time. When my clients and friends started Orangetheory Fitness back in 2010, I was involved in the creation, like the inception of that business. And to see how much that has impacted the world and, been almost the gateway drug, if you will, into, people understanding how you can really build a routine and get kind of, create good habits, right? Like, and for me, when you're talking about discipline and you're talking about the non-negotiables, I'm still that way. Like I just drove 5 hours from DC to New York early this morning, and based on what I needed to do in that time frame, I wasn't able to work out this morning. But it's interesting, the minute that I got to New York, I just drove straight to my gym. And I literally worked out and I moved a meeting in order to do that. And I am maniacal about it because it is a non-negotiable for me. And I had to do that just to be centered.
No, that's cool. I think, I think everybody, like you were saying before, I think everyone's at a different point in their journey. I was where you are now for many years. I was. And it was,
yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing a friend of ours from college, my best friend Amy, and in DC in the winter, and it was literally like 10, it was so cold. It was like 10 degrees. And I was like, I'm running, I'm putting on my gloves, I'm putting on, and I was out the door. She thought it was like crazy,
Yeah.
But it was for me a non-negotiable. It kept me on my path and that was okay. And it still is okay. But today, if I went, I would not do that. I'm just more gentle on myself. It's definitely changed. And it's okay.
This is why this is good, Erica, because, we're coming at it from two different places. Like I just finished watching a video of our friend Brian Mazza. He just texted me because he's in Alaska.
Okay.
He's working out in snow with no shirt on in shorts. So, what's interesting is in the space that I'm in the fitness and wellness space,
Yeah.
with the cold and hot, contrast and that becoming so popular and recovery, I mean, how many cold plunge advertisements can you see on Instagram where, everybody has something to say about it, kind of like fitness, kind of like wellness, kind of like personal development. There are so many things you hear on the internet that are all the best thing to work for you. And I think we're going to explore a lot of those things. I find that interesting because, for me, you just said working out in the cold in DC and you're like, I don't have to do that anymore. And then I flash back to 30 seconds ago when Brian sent me this video and I'm watching it. And, that to him is a normal day. It's just funny how, listen, to each their own.
Yeah, no, to each their own. And I think whatever makes you feel positive self-regard. This is what I say to my clients. What makes you proud of yourself? Honestly, I'm in a place in life where I'm proud of myself for resting. I really am. I'm proud of myself for slowing down. And I'm like honoring that part of myself now. I didn't before. I was exhausted. I was doing spin classes. I was, but not, even if it wasn't exercising, I was busy with work stuff. I never really had, the balance I think I have now, I have to have now with kids. Like I have to have my solitude, my time.
Yes.
Then it's their time. And then it's, again, I think my days are structured still, like to the hour, for better
Right.
or for worse. That's just what's going on in my life. But at the same time, I still, the non-negotiables, like the solitude, the healthy solitude for myself of just being alone in my own thoughts, whether it's the walking or taking a bath or, just putting on music and cooking. I mean, I make sure I have that time to myself, because that to me is like where I'm at in terms of importance.
You have to. I mean, you have to really, in order again to I think, anybody who is operating at a high level, and whatever that means to you, you need to be able to clear your head. I think mindfulness is the most important thing. I think mental health is something everybody's struggling with in this post-COVID environment, including myself, which is why I am so maniacal about my daily routine and about
Right.
the discipline, right? So for me, the physical benefit of the things that I do are almost like a byproduct of me making sure that my mind is right.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So I know for myself, if I don't get some sort of movement in the morning, that my day's going to suffer. I'm going to be off. And quite frankly, I can't really afford to be off. And that's, why I pulled into the gym parking lot. It's literally like my car drove itself there. And I walked on a treadmill for 30 minutes, nothing crazy. I read a book actually on my phone while I was walking on the treadmill, and I left and I was good to go.
So proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing what you did, because I was curious. No, I think that's important for people to hear, is like just walking, just movement, just on, like, again, it's like just getting that movement in is really what mattered, instead of like what you did.
Yeah. But I think you brought up a great point, because it's really, it's important that people don't beat themselves up over what other people are doing. Right. And I walk a lot.
I was going to say,
I used to be all about the hustle culture and,
yeah.
like grinding and building my businesses and, out at night and back at it early in the morning, not spending time with my family. I adjusted everything, and it's almost like addition by subtraction.
Mhm.
I'm doing less and I'm more productive. I'm working out less in a more strategic way and resting, and I'm in better shape.
Yes, I'm so happy that you mentioned that. I know that's amazing. Do you feel like the walking for you is like your solitude time too, to be able to like?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really, I'll listen to a podcast every now and again, depending on how long I'm walking. But I did a program. I started the program for the first time during the pandemic, called 75 Hard, which the second workout of the day has to be outdoors, regardless of the weather or the climate. And for me, the easiest way for me to accomplish that was a walk.
Mhm.
So I started to walk with a weight vest 45 minutes a day. And it's something that I stuck with, because I also happen to have a bad knee. I had a big knee surgery years ago, and it's low impact. And again, it really clears my head.
Mhm.
I can learn something if I want to. I can make a phone call and speak to people and be productive during the walk. And you're doing zone 2 cardio, which people don't really know. They don't realize that you don't have to be running on an incline to get the benefit of doing cardiovascular workouts. And walking, I think, is the absolute best thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. If anyone could take anything from this podcast, it's walk.
Walk.
Walk. After I had my second child, I had them back to back, a year apart, and so my body was in not great shape and had weight to lose, and it was the pandemic, so I just walked every day. I took an hour to walk. I mean, I didn't necessarily walk the whole hour, but that hour was for walking. And then, 9 months, which is not bad, all the weight came off. Literally, that's all I did. And started walking up hills when I started getting more, a little bit more strength, and listen to music, dance, sang, whatever it was. But it was like, again, such I think like a healing time, and also just like a moment to be able to, connect with your body and connect with your thoughts. And anyway, I think it's always, for anybody that I've known, it's always been beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, I like incorporating new things, pushing myself in ways, and again, it's more so about just adding a challenge somewhere in it. Like I started for the last 3 weeks on Saturday mornings. I wake up really early and I've been walking like 8-9 miles with a 25-pound weight vest.
Awesome.
And that's like a 2 hour, 45-minute thing where I'm gone for, the better part of my Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I typically listen to at least 2 podcasts. A lot of people, it's called rucking, and a lot of people who actually do ruck talk about how you're actually not supposed to listen to anything. You're supposed to be listening to nature and, doing things like that. That's a little tough for me. That's a goal for me, is to like actually not be listening to a podcast or music and kind of tune that out so I have more thinking time.
Yeah.
But I sprinkle in, so for you, Erica, like I'm going to challenge you, to do things that are a little bit more difficult than you are doing now.
Yeah.
Like being serious about Pilates,
Yeah.
because, you said my core is not strong enough. My back's hurting me.
Yeah.
I hear Pilates right away.
Yeah. And just, it's funny you said that, because I just signed up for a group of classes. I just bought the classes and did one last week, and it was amazing. Right. I was sore for like 4 days after, just like
in places you didn't even know exist.
Places, no, like my butt, like everywhere, and I was like, I said to my husband,
everything.
I'm like, this is cool. I miss this feeling of being sore, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to it. I was going to ask you too, with kids, I know you have 2 beautiful boys and a beautiful wife, and having the family, and and they're older than my kids. So I'm just curious, what are like, walking, let's say you leave and have the time to walk. When did the balance come in, I would say? Or does your wife and you guys both have understandings that like, this is your time, this is important to Jay, he takes his Saturday mornings, I take this time, he helps with them. Like, do you communicate about that, or did it fall into place?
Yeah, no, very much. I mean, first off, my wife's a dietitian nutritionist, and
Okay.
she's probably 90% of the reason that I am where I am right now. I don't give her enough credit, because she's always been so dialed in with her fitness, with her nutrition, really, really being the opposite of what I was probably when we first were married. And over the years, it definitely rubbed off on me in a major way. I was always, quote unquote, air quotes, working out like most people, but I was going into the gym and looking at my cell phone and leaving and having, overeating or not knowing how to eat properly, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
She's way more regimented than I am. Like, she is up super early, gets her work. She does a very intense workout every morning, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 a days. So she's really into it. So she understands what I need to do. Because if anything, honestly, I've just caught up to her, so to speak. So, and then with the kids, we've really encouraged them to be active. We encourage them to eat healthy. That doesn't always work, obviously. But, we will go out on family walks. I take my boys to athletic training twice a week, where I just leave my office early and pick them up and go with them and, participate and make sure that, they understand why it's so important for them to, have these healthy lifestyles or healthy habits early. And we're just a healthy, family at this point. How about yourself?
No, I think, my kids are 3 and 4 years old. So we're, they really need our attention all the time. Like, literally, it's like, got to help her go to the bathroom still, even though they're potty trained, so there's not a lot of like free time when it's like the weekend. Let's say I have help during the week when I'm working, so I don't, not with them all day, and they're in school, preschool in the morning. So,
yeah,
they're not with me all day during the week, but the weekends we have them around the clock, and it's it's a lot. So I guess we're trying to figure out a balance. My husband, he's a mountain bike rider and a cyclist. He loves that, and a surfer. He doesn't do that anymore. We live in Los Angeles, so he used to have access to the ocean. But so he has a trainer in the garage, like a bike a trainer for cycling.
Sure.
And so he'll do that at night. He's very for him, like mountain biking. We live near trails is just amazing for him. He's in great shape.
I love that.
Yeah. And so he has his time. He respects, I like my mornings, so he gives me those, and he's always understood that too. So like you guys, I think we both have shared values and movement and doing things we love, make us feel better.
It is, I think it's a great point though, Erica, because, what I asked you about non-negotiables, have they changed? And then, at being at different phases of life and having kids that are at different ages and, having newborns and infants at home makes it way more difficult. I wasn't able, what I'm talking about now, I wasn't able to do, my boys, like you said, my boys are 11 and 8. So I'm a little out of that phase, which means I get a little bit more time back now. So, I take advantage of it, honestly. But it hasn't always been that way. And listen, when my kids were young, I talk about it all the time now. I drank more than ever. I mean, like I was so stressed out. I basically started SABRE, not even a year before Jax, my oldest, was born. So that one, I moved, started a company and had a baby in 12 months, so, I had no time really to do anything other than just work as much as I could to hope that one day I would have something, that to show for it, so to speak. And, my health and fitness took a complete backseat. And, my easiest way to pretend that I wasn't stressed out was just to drink.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, honestly. I think that, it's.
Oh, I know a lot, Ken. I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I know a lot of them. And it's funny because as I started to really change my relationship with alcohol, and I think that's a big part of the inspiration for me to do this podcast with you, because I've unlocked things about myself and showing up for other people and my wife and my kids. I feel like I robbed them so much of, years where I was numb and not really aware that while I was physically present, I really wasn't there. And I regret that, and that's really what keeps me centered and disciplined.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you've had that awareness and that now you can be present. It's never too late for anybody that's out there. It's like, your kids can always, they look to us as like a mirror, right? They can always, things can change, and to see, oh, look, dad did change. He's possible of change. He's a human. He can get better. Like I can do the same, even if some kids are not happy where they're at, and they know that they could do better. Right. So I think this is important for any demographic, any age group, anybody to know that there's always hope. You can always change your routines. You can always feel better, have better thoughts, be a better person, a husband, wife, friend, whatever it is. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think, for you too, it's just, like the contrast of seeing where you were at presence wise, that's the most powerful. And I think people don't necessarily realize that alcohol does deprive us of our presence, for many reasons, which we'll get into with certain experts on our show. But, it's just our brain is affected, our our lives, our moods are affected, right? We don't feel great. There's so much shame sometimes that people carry with them around their behaviors, whether that's conscious or not conscious. It's, comes out in your esteem. It comes out in how you present yourself in your family or in your life in general. It's just so many layers. I'm happy we will discuss. And that's one of the reasons why when I, was 28, when I got sober, I remember saying to myself, I'm happy to get a couple of years under my belt before I have kids or I find a mate and have a family, because I really want to be solid in my sobriety. And I want to be, I want to get to know this new self of mine in this new identity that I kind of have. And I did, I didn't get married till I was 37 years old. Had my first kid at 39, second one at 40. And, now they'll never know me as, I'm a human and I'll make mistakes, but they won't ever see me drunk,
Yeah, I can't say the same. I definitely, my kids were aware, and it wasn't really like problematic drinking in front of them. It was more out at a party, coming home from a wedding late and, being hammered, and them being awake, waiting for us, and, them understanding that I was drunk, that type of thing. And I think, by the way, that's very common in my social setting, in my peer group. I'm
That the
not
kids
describing
see.
anything that's,
Yeah.
that's uncommon. It's more common, if anything. But, for me, I've realized through the tragic loss of my mother, in my early 20s, that in order to cope, I just numbed myself and became a workaholic. And that was great for me to kind of achieve some levels of success, because I do think in business a lot, you do get a lot of stress as an entrepreneur that doesn't know where the next check's coming from, so to speak, and being responsible for the livelihood of a lot of other people, and in addition to your family, there is a lot of stress there. It helped me cope with those things. But I started to realize not too, in the last 3 years, really, um, that I needed to actually face myself and sit with my thoughts and try to get to the root of those problems rather than continue on the way that I've been operating. And it's honestly, I've never felt better. And what I mean by that is really just, I had to kind of, it might sound cheesy, but I had to really get to know myself again on a different level. Because when you're drinking and you're hungover, I would have terrible anxiety as a result of that. And then I would have a short fuse with my kids. Kids are
Yeah.
kids, right?
Right.
Like they're going to do things that are annoying and loud and so on and so forth. And when you're hungover, you can't deal with those things. You leave the room. You get in the car and go for a drive. And that's just not right. You can't just walk away. You can't, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure a lot of people do it. Not just men, both men and women, are really not realizing how much it actually impacts their life.
Right, exactly. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Just leading by example now as a parent, I think for your sons to see you and they're old enough to understand you're on now a healthy path and you're not drinking, and I'm sure you talk about it and they overhear it, whether you're telling them directly or not. What a beautiful example that is, by the way. It's powerful and it's beyond, I think, life changing for them that you even realize. My dad, I watched him drink my whole life, and he's, it's fine. We talk about it still. He still drinks, and I saw it, so that's what I thought was normal, and
Yeah.
I didn't know anything but that. I thought adults drink, and seeing people drunk was normal, and nothing really negative. But I think, genetically speaking, I'm predisposed to be, a problematic drinker, and there's a lot of different things that affect us all differently. We're all wired differently in terms of our DNA and the way we respond to alcohol too. So there's certain people that would say, "Oh, I'm fine during the day. I can wake up and do it." Okay, like you said before, we can't compare ourselves, right? If, only you truly know whether you're betraying yourself or not, and that's up to you to take action. If you feel like I woke up every morning feeling like I was betraying my greatest good or my highest self or my potential. I knew I wasn't, and it was painstaking every day to wake up like that, and so
And you were
yeah,
young. I mean, I give you a lot of credit for realizing those things so young, because a lot of the people that we know, and I'm sure people that and in your career, you're seeing a lot of folks that maybe knew early on they had some sort of an issue,
right,
but just didn't want to face it. Like, I mean, and it's interesting because I'm really, Eric, and I think it's important for the listeners to hear this. It's taken a while for me to even be on this podcast with you, talking about, like, saying publicly that I don't drink,
yeah,
right? Like, I am alcohol free in 2023. I couldn't even say that a year ago. Literally a year ago, I would have been so scared to actually say that I wasn't going to drink for a year. And 5 years ago, I would have bet my entire life savings that, I would never even reduce my alcohol consumption. and change meaningfully, try to change my relationship with alcohol. And I think once you start like really working on yourself, and you mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, you get so much more confidence, right? And for an alpha male like me, who's in a New York commercial real estate world with some of the biggest sharks in business, you know, it's a insecurity, it's an ego pride thing, right? Where
Hmm.
you just have to be this macho man that
Yeah.
doesn't have emotion, and is dealing with big multi-million dollar transactions. One dies out of thin air, you were relying on that check to pay your
Hmm.
mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. You build
Yeah.
this wall up, you put on this facade. And I think now, listen, I'm in my mid 40s now. Like it's different. I
Yeah.
don't have to prove that anymore to other people, to myself. So I think, depending on your background, what it is you do for a living, all of everything that makes up who you are as a person,
Yeah.
you're going to come to these conclusions at a different time in your life. You may never come to these, to each their own. But
Right.
I think what I'm so excited about with this podcast is openly discussing. Listen, I might go out and have a drink tonight. And if I do,
Hmm.
I'm going to come on the podcast on the next time, and I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
Erica, I completely
Yeah. As you
messed
should. As
up.
you
And we're going to talk about
Yeah.
it.
As you should.
I can promise you I'm not going to have a drink tonight, by the way, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like we're human.
We're human, and I love that about you, and I love that we do share the same values around that, which is transparency and truth at this point. So it's like we're
Yes.
you know we're here to show other people that we are fallible. There's things we can do. We can be better. We can get better. We're going to take responsibility for those things too, and that's why I'm excited for this podcast.
Here's a little secret, by the way. I'm getting like free counseling from you, like as a result of doing this.
That's
So
great. That's great. That's great. I know. And that's good. I'm happy to I'm happy to spread whatever kind of counseling knowledge I can. It's just funny when you were talking about being judged, and I know we'll wrap this up, but I think a lot of people do feel like they're going to be judged if you change, and we could talk about change a little bit more later on down the line, but
sure.
if people can be a little bit more curious. I love that word. It's like, don't judge things, but just be curious around what changes for you. Like, if I change, are my friends do I feel like they're gonna leave me? If they're gonna judge me, are they gonna be disappointed by me? Is my husband gonna, I hear this all the time from my clients. My relationship is based around alcohol and drinking. How am I gonna relate to
Totally.
my lover or my husband or my boy, so what around change is your family system going to fall apart? My dad, when I stopped drinking, he was my drinking buddy. My dad, it was like, I was like, how am I going to relate to him? He's going to be so disappointed in me. I'm serious. This is what I thought for years.
No, I believe it. I get it.
So again, and he's super proud and supportive of my choice.
Listen, I'm dealing with a lot of that now. It's a reality for me every day now. Like, every day I have a lot of
That's what I
like
felt
my
you
close.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel it. And, I think it's really important to stay true to yourself, and people that really are looking out for your best interest should be really encouraging you to better yourself, right? But unfortunately, you're right. It's a mirror. I mean, that is so true, Erica. It literally shines light on other people, and they start to, they start to feel like they have to give an excuse as to why they still, and we're not here for that. We're not here to say you have a problem. That's not what this is about. We are here to talk about how you can truly live better, and whatever that means for you. But I know for a fact that there are way too many people in the world that are not actually doing the work, that expect results. And I'm not cool with that. Like, I'm a little bit about the tough love. If you expect to have these things and create a certain life for yourself, you have to do the bare minimum. You're not going to be able to.
Well, you have to take action. You have to
Action.
take action. People think they can't. You cannot read a book and change. You have to take action towards that change. But
That's right. You can't read a book on push-ups and get strong muscles. You have to do the push-ups.
yeah, but even changing your thoughts. I have a million people, Jay, and my clients will say, "I've read 100 self-help books. Nothing's helped. I've done this and that, and nothing's helped." They've never taken action. I ask them, "Have you journaled? No. Have you, addressed your family roles? No. Have you gone to therapy? No. Right? No action. You could read 100 books. Nothing will change. You may have more knowledge.
Of course, I think that that's a big part of, just because with social media, how prominent, this topic is on social media. I think there are people just jumping from one master class, on something to another and never applying it. And, again, that's not what this is about. This is about, I think we're going to really cultivate an audience of people from all walks of life, all ages, that just want
Yeah.
to hear that
Yay.
it's possible,
Thank you
right?
for
And that's what
inspiring
we're
me.
going to share. And you inspire me to stay on, my journey. And that's why, honestly, I'm really excited to have these discussions with you. You have so much experience in this space. I'm just trying to be better today than I was yesterday. And I think other people will understand, how to do these things along with us.
Well said. Well said. Well said. Yes. And and it's just, I just want to say you are inspiring to me in so many ways in which I still have yet to grow. Again, I have to like revisit, certain forms of self-care. So thank you, Jay. And we're excited to share.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
we're excited to share all these great conversations that are coming your way, everybody.
We are. And, I think a goal for us should be to, have in-person meetups as we can, obviously, and, start to meet people that this resonates with. There are so many different cool things that,
We'll do some IG lives and try to do that too, for people to hop on. And
yeah, exactly. Like I want to be able to, Erica, you get to do this in your real
yeah,
life. For me, to be able to have conversations with people that have questions around, you know, any of these topics, like I want to be able to have an
yeah,
impact.
and you will, and
And,
you are.
I feel like
Yeah,
my journey, what I've been through and how I've, learned to evolve and grow, I feel like the reason that I've gone through what I've gone
yeah,
through is to be able to help other
right.
people go through these things as well.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you everybody for listening. We want everybody to feel good and live better.